The Syrian civil war is an ongoing multi-sided conflict in Syria involving various state-sponsored and non-state actors. In March 2011, popular discontent with the rule of Bashar al-Assad triggered large-scale protests and pro-democracy rallies across Syria as part of the wider Arab Spring protests in the region. Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah are the main international supporters of the Syrian government, providing military and strategic support throughout the conflict. At the start of the Syrian civil war in 2011, the Syrian Arab Army had on paper approximately these number of tanks: T-55 2000, T-62 1000, T-72 1500, armored personnel carriers BMP 2000, BMP-2 100, support armored vehicles BVP-1 AMBS 100, ZSU-24 for Shilka 400, armored recovery vehicles 130, SPA 2S1 Gvozdika, 2S3 Akastia 100. Note that these numbers are optimistic estimates. Later, SAA obtained dozens of MTLB APCs and T-90 tanks from Russia. The T-90s were supplied in late 2015. Damascus is an area where tank combat is most famous due to famous Mahamiya aka Adra and Shafra T-72 armor upgrades. In the late 70s and throughout early 90s, Syria imported a number of T-72 M1 tanks from the Soviet Union, as well as Czechoslovakia. These tanks were used in the 1982 Lebanon War with moderate effectiveness, after which it was called by Hafiz al-Assad the best tank in the world. The Syrian civil war took its toll on Syria's T-72, many tanks being lost in intense urban combat. To try to reduce these losses while under an arms embargo, Syria developed the Adra upgrade for the T-72 tanks in the town of Adra. The lack of spare parts, destruction of infrastructure, and the wild-scale economic blockade established the US-led bloc were among the key reasons behind the situation. Iran contributed significant efforts to ease the pressure faced by Syria, but it lacked necessary resources to introduce and implement a system which it would allow the Syrian Arab army to restore its exhausted capabilities. These factors, as well as the overwhelming role played in urban warfare during the conflicts, forced the SAA to find a way to maintain the combat efficiency of its tank fleet at an acceptable level by whatever means were at hand. This led to various DIY state modifications of battle tanks. In 2014, the 4th Armored Division began to upgrade their T-72 M1s, as well as military bulldozers and even Shilka SPGs in their workshop in Adra. The battle tanks were upgraded that got the name T-72 Adra, but they are more widely known as the T-72 Mahmiya. The initial T-72 Mahmiya had cages with what appears to be space armor bolted and welded onto the tank with support beams. The chains with steel balls were added to new hold-style skirts below the turret cage armor. In some cases, the frontal part of the added armor was filled with an unknown material. This armor is supposed to stop enemy rockets and explosives from penetrating the tank's hull or turret. The idea is that RPG would hit the cages and explode away from the tank armor, thus keeping the tank safe. However, this kind of protection is not enough to stop an ATGM strike. Another modification was the T-72 Shafra, which was employed by the Republican Gauss 150 Mechanized Division. It appeared to be an aimed at resisting ATGM. Numerous brackets are placed on the tank's turret which have a number of angled plates welded onto them. Some tanks have side skirts which follow a similar pattern. T-72 Shafra is equipped with composite armor which looks like that which can be seen on the Iraqi T-55 Enigma. This armor is supposed to stop some ATGMs, especially the older generation. T-72 Shafra was first documented in the combat in eastern Ghouta on February 27, 2017, when it was hit by an ATGM. The driver was wounded and turret was damaged but was not destroyed. There were 7 documented T-72 Shafras and all of them appeared to be successfully used in combat. Besides this, the SAA T-55 tanks were upgraded with North Korean fire control systems. The modernization included a 4-kilometer rangefinder as a part of the sensor, which includes a barometer, a hydrometer, and a thermometer. This ballistic computer, which makes the calculations based on the data it receives from the meters and the rangefinder, was added with a digital screen showing environment measurements and range to the target. Some T-55s upgraded with North Korean systems, were also fitted with a KPV 14.5mm heavy machine gun and smoke screen launchers. Some of them also had thermal sights. At this point in conflict, these modifications are largely unnecessary. On 24 August 2016, the Turkish armed forces began a direct military into Syria by declaring Operation Euphrates Shield, mainly targeting the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Turkey has strongly supported Syrian dissidents. The Syrian opposition activists were convened in Istanbul in May 2011 to discuss the regime change, and Turkey hosted the head of the Free Syrian Army. Turkey became increasingly hostile to the Assad government's policies and encouraged reconciliation among dissident factions. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan declared his intent to cultivate a favorable relationship with whatever government would take place of Assad. In 2017, it facilitated the establishment of the Syrian National Army of the Syrian Interim Government, which it finances. From summer of 2016 to early 2020, the Turkish military launched 4 expeditionary campaigns in northern Syria. The first campaign, Operation Euphrates Shield, marked the first time that a NATO nation deployed conventional formation to confront Islamic State. On the second and third campaigns, namely Operation Olive Branch and Operation Peace Spring, targeted the Kurdistan's Workers' Party and affiliated groups in Syria. The latter, which took place in the northeastern Syria, also led to serious divergences between Turkey and its traditional Western ally. The final campaign, Operation Spring Shield, was a punitive measure targeting the Syrian Arab Army and adjacent paramilitary units following the killing of 36 Turkish troops by a Russian Syrian air campaign. The tanks used by Turkey were mainly Leopard 2A4, M60T, M60A3, and M48 Patton tanks. Urban warfare and ATGMs, such as the Cornet and TOW missiles, caused significant losses, particularly to Leopard 2A4 tanks during early operations like Euphrates Shield. Known as one of the best main battle tanks globally, the Leopard 2 is often compared to M1 Abrams and Challenger 2. It features advanced armor and firepower, making it highly effective against traditional Soviet-era tanks. Turkey acquired 354 Leopard 2A4s in the early 2000s, primarily for the defense against conventional military threats. Initially, these tanks weren't used in counter-insurgency operations against Kurdish militants, but this changed during Operation Euphrates Shield against ISIS in 2016. The 2A4 models designed for Cold War era tank battles proved ill-suited for urban combat. Vulnerabilities in its turret and side armor led to significant losses in battles like those in Al Bab, where Turkish Leopards were destroyed by ISIS using ATGMs and IEDs. Photos confirmed losses, including tanks hit by 87 and 85 missiles. Turkey requested Germany to modernize its Leopard 2A4s to include active protection systems, like the Israeli Trophy, but the political tensions, including disputes over Turkey's offensive against Kurdish enclaves, delayed this process. More modern Leopard 2A6 and 2A7 models used by other countries have better protection and upgrades. However, Turkey's fleet remains vulnerable without these improvements.